We just need to pull that up. Bam. And now you can see better. More gooder. More goodlier. And we need our pen. The pen is mightier than the sword. That's what I hear. And let's see. Oh my gosh. There's so many messages real quick. I apologize. Manage your channel. And we're doing our test. Our big fat test. Test. Big fat test. Awesome. Everything is good. Twitch is up. YouTube's up. So today we are going to talk about League Round 1. First we're going to go over all of the stuff from League, like the overall where everything's sitting. And we're going to kind of mute. All right, not Twitch. Why did I do that? We'll go over where everything's sitting right now. We have, I think, 2 games to finish up this week. They'll be finished by Wednesday. And then we'll talk about my game and how that went. And then we'll talk about a few other things. Oh, man. We're up to 22 participants in the Plymouth tournament. That's awesome. I expect... That's not me. That's the league. Sorry. 15 in the tournament. There we go. I was like, wait a minute. I didn't do a 5-round tournament. Yep, everything's working. Sorry, my brain just kind of locked up for a minute. All right, so we've got pairings. And my score is not accurate on here, but we'll talk about that when we get to the overview. So, John, did he bring his orcs? I think he did. Yeah, as he should have. John is the other local orc player. I guess I'm no longer really officially an orc player. I think at this point I'm just a Drukhari player that dabbles in orcs instead of an orc player that dabbles in Drukhari. And we can thank YouTube for that, I think. But John, big win over, I think it's Space Wolves is what we're looking at here. Yep. Bo, Chaos Knights. Krishna, what did he have? Space Marines, Iron Hands. So the Towering, 1, big shock there. Custodes, 1, big shock there. This was Nids versus probably Space Wolves. Craft Worlds, 1, big shock there. I think this is another Nids win. What did Alex play? I think he just played Space Marines. Chaos Space Marines. Daniel has got sisters. They're doing their game tomorrow, I believe. And then Joe and Ed are doing their game, I think Wednesday or Thursday also. Sometime this week. And Ed, big shout out to Ed, man. That dude has always been a Custodes player for as long as I've known him. So I won't rag on him the way I do other people for playing Custodes or whatever army. Because I've never seen him play anything else. So again, big shout out to just, sticking with it, being good with a faction. Votan over Tyranids. Grey Knights over Tau. And then GSC over myself, Drukhari. Like I said, my score's actually lower on here than it should be, but I'm not going to adjust it. It is what it is. We just had talked about the game and realized that I had killed a few more characters than I actually did. Missed some of my assassinate points. And I think it pushed me up to 59, making it like a 12-point game instead of a 20-point game. So that does make a big difference. Outside of that, let's see, 50, 52. Good chance I'm playing like Ultramarines. Or, I'm probably playing some sort of power armor. It is what it is. Let's see. So, my game. We actually didn't use this layout. We did player place terrain. And actually, let me talk to you guys about what we've been doing for player place terrain. Add in a minute if you're on Twitch. But let me talk to you guys about what we've been doing for player place terrain so that you can understand what it looks like. We're going to open up Discord. You can see all my Discord stuff. It's cool. Boop. Terrain rules. So every player gets 1 12 by 12, 2 6 by 12s, 2 6 by 6s, and then each person will also get 1 armor container and 1 crater. Before we roll deployment zones, before we roll attacker or defender, we roll to see who places first. And then you alternate placings, and you just put whatever you want down. Each terrain feature has to be 4 inches from any other terrain feature and 4 inches from the edge. Add in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 4 inches from the edge. And then once you place all your features, if you get to a point where one cannot fit, you just find the most open area on the table and push things as little as possible to make it fit, which means you're going to have some gaps that are like 3 inches, and then most of them should be 4. And so far, we've actually had a pretty good experience with this. The intent is to keep people from being able to block you out of placing your piece. And then also, because you're rolling for deployment zone after the terrain is set, it does help kind of promote a good balanced table, even if it's not symmetrical. And it can cause you to maybe make that attacker-defender role a little bit more important because the table is not symmetrical. Overall, like I said, generally had pretty good experiences with it. I think we had one player who came forward and said, hey man, it was a little tight and I couldn't move my models around the way I really wanted to. And, you know, so we may adjust some things and we may just do another round. I don't know. I would have to see how they set the table up also, because I've had some Knights players that have played on it. I've had some Wraith Knights on it. I've had some Land Raiders on it. And all these have had bigger models, bigger bases. And like I said, everybody, for the most part, has been like, nah, this works pretty well. You know, it's not perfect. I don't expect it to be perfect, but it does work. Now, boop, boop, boop. So we had an objective here. No, we did not. We did not. Our deployment zones for this mission were this to this. And then we had, what is it? There's one that's like somewhere in here. Oh, let's do blue. I think it's like somewhere in here. Anyway, there's like an objective here. There's an objective here. And then there's the objective here and the objective here. There should be one in the middle, but it actually got removed because of the mission that we played. And I'm going to do my best to work this through memory to let everybody know. Oh boy, my buddy Kyle's sending me stuff. And it's usually silly if he's sending me stuff. No, that's the wrong. Stop. Battles. Alright, so let's find our recap. Or our game. Alright, so we've got... let's go to round 1. I played Assassination and I played Teleport Homer. And he played Tactical. And so, let's see. We got the black. We did have a feature in the middle of the board. Again, this isn't a perfect representation of our table. It's just to kind of walk you through what I had. Right? I had placed a feature kind of like this and had a way to be in it. So what ended up happening was I was able to move turn 1, some Cabalites up, and deploy homers. And really, they just sat there for most of the game farming homers for me. Okay? And Cam, I think I went first. Yep, I went first. And interestingly, I have won, I think, 2 games going first out of the 20 that I've played, somewhere in there. Out of the 20 games that I've played, if I remember right, I've gone first, or 15 games that I've played since tracking stats. I've gone first like 4 times, and I've won, or 6 times, and I've won twice. It's like a 30 or 20, it's a really low percentage. And then my go second win rate is like 90. So it's an interesting interaction, and I'm learning slowly how to mitigate it, what I can do to change it. And I think changing secondaries is going to help. So I did do deploy teleport Homer for 3 here. His tacticals, he got extend battle lines and something else. And because he didn't do the first one, ended up just trashing it for a command point is ended up what happening. So he did that, right? But what ended up happening is I had that. I pushed that up. I had a Venom kind of move up to here to just kind of have this lane. Because he had forward deployed his Aberrants right here. So I had a Venom and Talos, and my Talos jumped up also. And we're going to clear that out in a minute. But my Talos jumped up also because I was like, you know what? Those Aberrants are right there. We're going to see if we can't do something about them. I did kill quite a few of them initially, but like Homeboy just did not fail his 4-up Feel No Pains, and I get it. Like that's how 4-ups work. You either make them all or you fail them all, and there's not really anything in between. So we ended up staying tied up for I think 2 or 3 rounds. He ended up killing a Talos because of it, and man, it was rough. All right, you guys are being loud. My phone's going off while I'm trying to look at this. So that was basically my turn 1 was kind of doing that. I had bounced my Raider kind of up behind another big piece to stage it for the upcoming attack. He had some Gene Stealers kind of move down. And I thought, all right, if I trade the Raider for the Gene Stealers, that's not bad because he'll pick the Gene Stealers up immediately. And then round 2 came up, right? And then round 2, I was able to get teleport Homers in his deployment zone with some Scourges. Which, I don't know if that's the best use of the Scourges, but that's what we did. Needed points. And then, I killed a lot for Assassinate. And then he got Bring It Down and Engage on All Fronts, which he scored easily. Because this was the turn he killed like a Talos, he killed a Venom, he killed... a lot of my vehicles ended up dying this turn, turn 2. Turn 2 was just like so much of my army just evaporated. And I was just like, oh, I see. Because GSC, not only do they have like crazy mobility, all of their dice are way more efficient than they should be. You know, they've got a lot of, sure, they're ballistic skill 5, but it's like, okay, but my 6s explode, I have full hit rerolls, and then I can get like lethal hits in addition to, so I'm skipping the wound roll. The seismic cannons just throw so many dice. I think within rapid fire range, you can get 4 seismic cannons in a squad, and it's 6 shots each, so it's just 24 shots. So it's just like, with 6s exploding and full rerolls, like, you're just going to drown people in dice. And it was one of those where, like, when they come out of Deep Strike, they have special rules. When they do some other thing, they have special rules. So, again, like, when he was coming out of his Deep Strikes and stuff, like, everything was just crazy efficient. And it was just like, all right, sure, man. And it was what it was. Like, I kind of expected it. And I just wanted to see if I could weather it. So what ended up happening was I did get my teleport Homer and a bunch of Assassinate. And then round 2 I got more, or round 3 I got more Assassinate. I got more deployed, but I never really pushed past mid-board, right? Like I never got further than this. Like my Incubi maybe made it to here. I had Scourges down in this area here. But generally speaking, I just couldn't leave my deployment zone. And not because he boxed me in, but because, like, literally every unit can teleport, and every unit is just hyper efficient. So I'm just picking up things. So I had to just keep things very close together and very tightly packed. And it really is what, like, it hampered my mobility. Because had I spread out, he would have been able to teleport everywhere, and I would have just picked up even more units. But because I was able to keep everything kind of tightly packed and condensed, I forced him to have to go in front of me every time for the most part instead of into me. He did the 3-inch deep strike once, and then it immediately got slapped with the Archon's ability. I was like, okay. And in retrospect, I don't know if that was a better choice or if I should have done the 2-unit deep strike. Because it was like, I'm just picking my poison. Do I want him to teleport 2 units, or do I want to teleport 1 unit 3 inches? You know, because the downside is that everywhere he went, he was just killing whatever he looked at. And so, and we're talking base troops. Like, base troops were pointing at a Talos and picking it up. Base troops were pointing at a Raider and picking it up. Base troops were, like there was not a period where he shot something and it didn't just die. So it was very interesting to see that interaction. And even with, like, lightning fast reactions, the one thing I will say is if I'd have brought more racks, I'd have probably felt a lot better because the feel no pains were relevant. It is a lot of dice, but I can -1 to wound them, and it's like a lot of wounds to chew through. And they did stick around, even though I only brought 5 of them with the homunculus. They ended up soaking a bit more shooting than probably they should have. Round 3, he pulled Cleanse and Area Denial. And I think he just, like, got rid of Area Denial and then scored Cleanse. And I couldn't do anything about it because he could just, like, teleport onto objectives. And that's where GSC is, I don't want to say oppressive. That's not the right word. But that's where they're so good right now is not only are they hyper efficient at killing things, hyper mobile, they can also just score whatever they want, whenever they want, because of the fact that they're hyper efficient at killing things and hyper mobile. Like, I don't know how you fix them because they have infinite units. And clearly, well, before we dig into this, clearly they are not pointed to have infinite units. And you say, Chris, what do you mean? Well, I was looking at his Gene Stealers. And they're fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with them. They're not crazy. They are definitely better than Tyranid Gene Stealers. Like, if you took a snapshot of their datasheet and you look at the regular Tyranid datasheet, the GSC Gene Stealers are better. And they're the same points, and on a 4-up, they just respawn. So that tells me that when they pointed out GSC, they did not even consider the implications of potentially infinite bodies. Right? Like, if you look at Sigmar, they have infinite bodies or close to it with, like, the Pink Horrors. And the Pink Horrors, they charge you points for it. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. They are, because you can't do anything with them, Jimmy. I agree with you. You just can't do anything with them. You have to just kind of, you can't stop what they do. They can stop what you do. They can bounce. They can do whatever they want. And there's no interaction that allows you to kind of slow it down or stop it. Yeah, I don't disagree with you. And like I said, I think the first step GEW does is gives everything about a 25 to 50% points hike. Right? So honestly, like, if shit were more expensive, I don't think it would have been nearly as bad. But the fact that those dudes are 8 points a model, the base troops, and you get an infinite number of them, if you start taking them up to, like, even if you take them up to 12 points a model first, that cuts down on the number of bodies you can bring a lot. Because they come in squads of 10 to 20. And, you know, if 20 of them is 160 points, you can get 20 of those neophytes for almost the same points as 10 Kabalites. And they're just way better, and you have infinite. But it's one of those where if you can cut them down, and you can make it to where they're bringing, like, half as many, or 25%, a quarter of as many, half to 3/4 of as many bodies as they're bringing now, I think that helps. I don't think it's perfect, but I do think that's the first step, is that the whole army just gets a 25 to 50% points hike depending on what the unit is. The downside is that if you don't do it across the table, they just switch to something else, right? If we just make neophytes more expensive, then you're just going to see infinite acolytes. So it's one of those where most of the army needs to just go up in points first, or they just say you can respawn once and then that's it. One of those two things will help a lot. Because I probably killed about 1,500 points worth of bodies. Like, when it was all said and done, I probably almost tabled him. But it didn't matter, right? Because shit just kept coming back. And it is a cool mechanic. I'm not opposed to it as a mechanic. But like you said, buddy, it's just not balanced. Yeah, so I did my homers again. I didn't assassinate that turn, or I might have. Like I said, we skipped some assassinate points. And I don't know what round we skipped them in or missed them in. So I ended up, like I said, it ended up being like a 12-point game instead of a 20-point game, which, again, whatever. I'm not going to alter the score. It was just one of those where we had been talking about a lot of things from that game after the game, because Cam's a pretty cool dude. And he does like playing, and he does like learning and stuff like that. So he got deploy teleport homer, and he got defense stronghold. He got that one. Everything was super easy. Round 5, I got assassinate. I got some more homers. On homers, I got 16 out of 20, which I don't think was bad. On assassinate, I got 20 out of 20. I did end up capping it. So I got 36 points in secondaries. And then he got 37 points in secondaries. So overall, I was able to keep pace with him on the secondary game. Where I couldn't keep pace was the primary game. And that's just because, like I said before, there's nothing you can do. My army is paper mache. It will die to just like bolt gunfire, auto gunfire, and stuff like that. And when you can have like 30 auto gun shots or 24 of the seismic cannon shots just teleport wherever they want on the table, and then they're just like hitting on 4s or 5s with full rerolls and 6s explode and all this other stuff, there's nothing you can do. The only thing you can do is like certain armies could probably weather that storm better. But ultimately, there's just not a lot you can do unless you have some sort of tool that can prevent them from teleporting. Which I don't remember how the rule interacts right now. Like the 12-inch no deep strike, I don't remember if that supersedes the 3-inch deep strike or if the 3-inch deep strike supersedes the 12. I'd have to look it up. I don't remember off the top of my head. But the primary game was the big one. I basically just held this objective the whole game. And then I think like one turn scored this one. And maybe one turn scored this one. And that was pretty much it. That's all I could do. But ultimately, I think I got like 13 points on primaries. And then he got 37? No, it wasn't that big of a difference. 34 to 13. So like the difference in our score. And really, it was a 20-point game because of paint. But like the difference in our score was the primaries. Like, I just couldn't hold objectives. And that's honestly been an issue I've been having with Drukhari anyway. And I think ultimately I know what I'm doing. I think what I'm doing is the same thing I did early on in 9th when I started getting into Drukhari. Is I think I was playing them a little bit too orky. And what I mean by that is with orcs, you have enough bodies and they're a little bit tankier than you'd expect. So I can send units out here and then send units out here. Like, I can flood the table with targets and I can make you struggle to eliminate them because, like, especially with, like, beast snaggers, they've got the 6-up feel no pain. If I put a pain boss or a pain boy in one of the squads, they got a 5-up feel no pain. I can put a battle wagon, and unless you are craft worlds or anything with, like, anti-vehicle, devastating wounds, bucket of dice, like, the battle wagon's probably not going anywhere right away. So it's one of those where I can have a lot of targets on the table that they take the damage. Their damage output isn't amazing, but they can soak it, and then they can just throw a lot of dice. And I think what I'm doing right now with Drukari is I'm trying to do too much, which is why I stopped taking Engage. Because, like, normally I've been taking Engage, so I would have been here and I would have been here. And yeah, I could have scored it, but I would have had to have kept feeding units this way and feeding units this way. Whereas by taking homers, I literally just had to try to get a dude towards the center. And then if I can get him into his deployment zone, awesome. If I can't, I can at least get 3 points times 5 turns, right? Like, it's super easy to get homers. And it doesn't force me to have to keep spreading my army out. What it allows me to do is kind of pick one side of the table or the other side of the table and just say, this side's mine. You can have the whole other side. And that is what I need to get back to doing. And again, I think I just have gotten away from it. I've been playing Orcs quite a bit, and then I jumped into Drukari for the League. And really, like, that's been, I think, what's going on is I need to kind of shift my mindset away from playing Orcs again. And it's just been a little bit of a struggle. Outside of that, I want to talk about a couple other things while I'm live. That was round 1. And to be fair, like, Cam's super nice dude. I've known him for years. Love playing games with him. He's a lot of fun to play with. And really, like, he is just getting back into 40k. And when he and I were talking about what army he should play, it was before the indexes were even out. And I told him, like, based on what I know about him, if he doesn't want to just keep doing Harlequins because he's not sure if he likes their playstyle and he didn't want to, like, I think he ended up getting rid of a lot of them. I told him that GSC is going to fit, like, the way he likes to play the game. And it does. It does. So he didn't, like, wait for the index and go, this is what I'm buying. Haha, I'll win every game. It was, I'm going to start building it. And then the index came out and he was like, oh, shit. You know, but like I said, super nice dude. And he's just playing something that he thinks is super fun. And we had a great time. Ultimately, like I said, the army's not super balanced. And it's not going to be until something happens. And we definitely have some sort of errata or FAQ coming either this week, like the week we're in, or next. I don't know that we have a hard date on that. I just know it was within a week of Tacoma. They used it at Tacoma. I don't know what it is because I didn't work Tacoma, and they're not going to send it to me unless I'm working. So that's just kind of the nature of it. So I should have it about the same time as everybody else, right? And that is what it is. I don't know if it's going to fix what's wrong with the game. There's a lot of weird interactions. Like I had made an announcement that I'm not running any more events after Plymouth until some of the issues in the game get fixed. And really what it like there's some weird keyword interactions that just don't make sense. And it's not that they're broken, it's that they require way too much discussion and processing. And there's way too much room for different interpretations from different people. And with GW not coming out and saying this is the intent behind some of this stuff, like that is the inherent issue. Assassinate is a great example. If you get Assassinate on tactical objectives and you kill a unit with a character in it, you get Assassinate points. So the rules as written, if I am playing tactical and I draw Assassinate, if I kill your bodyguard unit, I get points for Assassinate. But if I'm playing fixed, I have to specifically kill the character model in order to get Assassinate points. And it's just a weird interaction that doesn't necessarily make a ton of sense. Like, why does killing the bodyguard unit give you points for Assassinate for a tactical? Is that intended, or is that accidental? And I had some discussions ad nauseum with multiple TOs and stuff about this. It was just like, hey guys, if the whole unit shares all keywords, then both units get the character keyword, then both units would give up points for Assassinate. And one guy was like, well, no, because it's character model, not character unit killed. And I was like, sure, but if you look at the data sheet section of the rule book, it says that the keywords on the data sheet are put on each individual model. Now, you could make the argument that shared keywords aren't on the data sheet and therefore don't go on the individual models. But I think at that point, we're getting too... There's too much semantics, too much hair splitting going on. And then I was like, but also tactical says unit, not model. And he was like, no, it doesn't. And then I sent him a screenshot of it, and he was like, oh, shit. And I was like, yeah. So we've got the same secondary that interacts in two different ways depending on if you're playing tactical or fixed. And that could be intended. I'm not saying it's not. It's just one of those where, like, this is just one of those interactions that I've seen where I'm like, there are just too many things in this game that need clarification and fixed in order for me to feel confident and comfortable in taking people's money in order to run events, right? Like, I'll run the free league and I might do a couple free events, but I am not intending on taking your money to play a game until we get some of this stuff fixed. Because I, as a TO, cannot in good faith feel good about taking your money to play an unfinished game. You know, you can take that to mean whatever you want to take it to mean. That is just my stance on it. And I also just feel like the game just needs balanced right now. You've got, 3 to 4 factions that are just spit roasting anything that they come against for the most part. You've got a couple factions that are just very middle of the road, and then you've got the bulk of the game that's at the bottom. And that's not necessarily a bad thing if you either bring the bottom ones up or bring the top ones down so that we can all just meet in the middle. But the problem is that we did the points adjustments. It didn't necessarily fix anything, which we weren't sure it was going to. It did kind of rein some things in a little bit. But, like, Eldar are still doing very well, even with the Strands of Fate dice getting nerfed and points hikes to some of the units that were getting abused. So it's just very interesting to me to see what is going to be coming next. Whether we're going to see bottom tier armies getting some love, or if we're going to see top tier armies getting kind of brought down. Normally, I'd say bring the bottom armies up. But honestly, playing one of those bottom armies, isn't that the case for? Yeah, and that's because they just do their stuff in a very shitty way. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you about it, Jimmy. You know, because of the way that they write their codexes, like, they're very reactionary. And because they write them reactionary, you're right, that is exactly the interaction we get. But we don't have codexes. And my point is that they've had literally 3 years to work on this and iron it out. And this feels very much like a rushed, patched up job. And if it is, that's fine, but then just say it is. Right? There's nothing stopping them from just coming out and saying, hey, we're going to beta test these. The game's going to be in a rough spot for a couple months, and we're going to use that information to try to create a more balanced game and a better set of codexes for 10th. But that isn't how it was presented. You know, they very much were, hey, and let's, now you get to look at me. You're stuck looking at me. You know, that's not how it was presented. It was buy our hardback rule book, buy our index cards, and then get pissed off at us later when we have to FAQ them because we didn't put any effort into editing, we didn't put any effort into proofreading, and we didn't put any effort into balancing. And again, I get it. Like, this is their business model. And that's why I'm just not going to support that business model until they fix the state of the game. Like, I either keep contributing to the problem or I do something else until the problem gets fixed. And that's kind of where I came to, because that was one of the discussions, like I said, I had with Cam. Like, we were just talking about keywords and all this other stuff, and he was just like, what is going on? You know, the like if you put the Hive Tyrant with Tyrant Guard, he gets the infantry keyword, but he doesn't get to move through walls like infantry. So then why does he have the infantry keyword? So that if I have an anti-infantry or attack, it can affect him. And it's really all it is. But it's just one of those where it's just a weird interaction. It doesn't make a ton of sense. I understand why it exists. It's just odd. You know. But that's going to segue into the next thing is while I am kind of waiting for the FAQ and the errata, we are going to be learning some new games. We're going to be looking at some different things. And I'm going to do some videos on them. I'm going to show everybody some of the other stuff that's out there that maybe they don't know about. I know, like, Jimmy, you and your group, you guys have been doing Marvel Crisis Protocol. We're actually looking at a game called Firefight, which is the Mantic Games analog to 40k. The rules section on that looks absolutely phenomenal. We're not looking at buying a bunch of models for it. Like, I may get an army, but a lot of, like, some of the armies will transition from 40k to it, so a lot of us can just use our models for it. And it just looks like a very clean, well-written game. And then another one we've been doing is Sigmar, which everybody knows. You know, my daughter got into Sigmar, so I've been learning Sigmar. I actually played my first full 2K game of that the other day, and it was a blast. It's one of those where, you know, I'm not a fan of Mortal Wounds. They do exist a lot in Sigmar, but now they just exist a lot in 40k. So my thinking behind it was like, okay, well, if I have to deal with this mechanic that I don't like in order to play this game that I do generally enjoy, I might as well play a much more polished and finished version of the rules rather than whatever's happening with 40k. And it's not just me. Like, again, having these discussions with multiple tournament organizers, like, a lot of them have very similar feelings. I was speaking with one of them, and the only reason he's running events is because their community tanked, and he's just trying to keep it alive. You know, talking to another one who isn't running any events until probably August or September because of the state of everything. Like, he's literally going to wait until the first 2 codexes come out so he can see how much gets done before he can run events. So it's not just me, and you're gonna see some of these events, like especially the smaller locally run ones, they're gonna start to kind of taper down over the next couple weeks unless these FAQs kind of address the problems that are going on in the game. And Jimmy, you actually brought up a great point, man, is that 40k is not made specifically for us, right? Like, we are a microcosm in the 40k player base. There's like 100,000 people in the competitive 40k Reddit, and there's like 15,000 people registered on BCP. So we are just a microcosm of the player base. But to me right now, the game feels very pay to win, and that's not an interaction I enjoy. And I know they're a business, and I know they need money. I'm not disputing that. But at the end of the day, it's a game, and it's supposed to be fun. And if I wanted to play pay to win, I would just play Magic. And so, like, that's kind of my stance on it. Is if we're just going to adopt video games and Magic in terms of business strategies, I will just continue to find other things until GW figures out what it is they want to do. So, I'm off my soapbox. I'm done ranting. I'm sorry I did that to everybody. But, I am going to be jumping off here in a couple minutes. We do have a stream game Thursday. I don't know what we're playing yet. I will let everybody know as soon as I do know. And we will do some sort of live stream Friday. I'm hopeful that the FAQ or errata is out so we can maybe do that on the live stream. And I've got another video on deck coming out today, and it's just announcements. It's going to be is a quick video going over announcements about like the future of the channel and stuff like that. So, once again, I appreciate everybody for watching. I hope you all have a great day, and I'm sorry.